beautiful September morning, yon bright sun beheld me a slave. A poor degraded chattel, trembling at the sound of your voice, lamenting that I was a man and wishing myself a brute. I was like one going to war without weapons. 10 chances of defeat to 1 victory. But God's grace was sufficient. My mind was made up. I embraced the golden opportunity, took the morning tide at the flood, and a free man, young, active, and strong, is the result. When I was just a child, about 6 years old, I first imbibed the determination to run away. The very first mental effort that I now remember on my part was an attempt to solve the mystery, why am I a slave? I had, through some medium, I know not what, got some idea of God, the creator of all mankind, the black and the white, and that he had made the blacks to serve the whites as slaves. How could he do this and be a good God? I was puzzled with the question till one night, while sitting in the kitchen, I overheard some of the old slaves talking of their parents having been stolen from Africa by white men and sold here as slaves. Well, the whole mystery was solved at once. And very soon after this, my Aunt Jenny and Uncle Noah ran away. There were free states as well as slave states. And from this day forward, I made up my mind that I would someday run away. The morality of the act, I dispose as follows. I am myself. You are yourself. We are two distinct persons, equal persons. What you are, I am. You are a man, and so am I. In leaving you, I took nothing but what belonged to me, and in no way lessened your means of obtaining an honest living. Your faculties remained yours, and mine became useful to their rightful owner. I therefore see no wrong in any part of the transaction. Since leaving you, I've occupied stations which I never dreamed of while I was a slave. 3 out of the 10 years since I left you, I spent as a common laborer on the wharves of New Bedford, Massachusetts. It was there that I earned my first free dollar. It was mine. I could spend it as I pleased. Oh, that was a precious dollar to me. You remember in Baltimore when I used to make $7 or $8 or even $9 a week, you would take every cent of it away from me every Saturday night, saying that I belong to you and my earnings also. I never liked this conduct on your part. To say the best, I thought it was a little mean. So far as my domestic affairs are concerned, I can boast of as comfortable a dwelling as your own. I have an industrious and neat wife, and we have 4 dear children. Dear fellows, are sound asleep now in their own beds, perfectly secure under my own roof. There are no slaveholders here to rend my heart by snatching them from my arms, or bless their mother's dearest hopes by tearing them from her bosom. These children are ours. Not to work up into sugar and rice and cotton and tobacco, but to watch over and regard and protect. My dear family, at this moment, you are probably the guilty holder of 3 of my sisters and my only brother in bondage. These you record on your ledger. Or perhaps have been sold with a view to filling your own ever-hungry purse, sir. I demand to know where and how these dear sisters are. Are they living? Are they dead? Have you sold them, or are they still in your possession? You write to me. Let me know all about them. I would write to you and not disturb them in any way, but they have been deprived of the power to read and write. You've kept them in utter ignorance. And this is an outrage upon the soul and a war upon the immortal spirit. How? Let me ask, how would you regard me? Were I some dark night, in company with a band of hardened villains, to enter the precincts of your own elegant dwelling and seize the person of your own lovely daughter Amanda? Take her away from her family and friends and all the loved ones of her youth. Make her my slave. Compel her to work, and I take her wages. Place her name on my ledger as property. Disregard her personal rights. Fetter the powers of her immortal soul by denying her the right and privilege of learning to read and write. Feed her coarsely, clothe her scantily, and whip her on her naked back occasionally, and more and still more horrible, leave her unprotected. A degraded victim to the brutal lust of fiendish overseers who would pollute and blight and blast her fair soul, rob her of all her dignity, destroy her virtue. I ask you, how would you regard me if such were my conduct? And yet, sir, your treatment of my own beloved sisters is precisely like the case which I have just now supposed. I will now bring this letter to a close, and you shall hear from me if I shall not hear from you. I intend to make use of you as a weapon with which to assail the system of slavery. And in doing this, I entertain no malice upon you personally. There is no roof under which you would be more safe than mine. Nothing for your comfort, which I might not readily grant. Indeed, I should esteem it a privilege to set you an example as to how mankind ought to treat each other. I am your fellow man, but not your slave. Frederick. Douglas.
Ladies and gentlemen, Roger Jenfair Smith performing performing an excerpt from his one-man show, Frederick Douglass Now. Thank you, Roger. Frederick Douglass was born Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. He was born on the Eastern Shore to an enslaved woman and to a white man, and it was presumed that his enslaver was his father. He only saw his mother a handful of times his whole life because she lived on a plantation that was 12 miles away. So in order for her to see her son, she would have to work in the fields picking cotton from sunup to sundown, walk 12 miles in the middle of the night, and spend just a few precious moments with him until he would fall asleep, and then she would have to walk 12 miles back so she could be back on the plantation by the time the sun came up, because if she wasn't, she was likely going to face punishment. He had brothers and sisters that were strangers to him. He had been separated. You had this little boy who was an orphan, who had no family, he had no home, and he had no country. And so if you could imagine, after he escaped slavery and he gets married and begins to have a family, how much family meant to him. And so tonight is going to be a celebration of Frederick Douglass's birthday and a celebration of family. My name is Kenneth B. Morris Jr., and I'm the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick and Anna Murray Douglass. And I'm also the great-great-grandson of Booker T. Washington. I'm co-founder and president of Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives. We're an abolitionist and anti-racist organization with the mission to build strong children and to end systems of exploitation. Tonight we're celebrating Frederick Douglass's birthday. Now, he didn't know when he was born. As I mentioned, he only saw his mother a handful of times, and his mother used to call him her little Valentine. And so he chose February 14th as his birthday, and that's why we're celebrating this evening. This will also be a celebration for my great-great-great-grandmother, Anna Murray Douglass, because there would be no Frederick Douglass without Anna in his life. While he was enslaved as a teenage boy in Baltimore, Anna was there as a domestic servant, and they lived about a street apart. And they started to talk, and they started to like each other, and they started to fall in love and think about a future together. And Anna was one of the first people to plant the seed of thought in Frederick's mind that you're not meant to be a slave for life. And as they started to think about having a family together, she said, "Frederick, I don't want our children's father to be a slave." Had she not sold her personal belongings to help finance his escape, had she not sewn the sailor's disguise that he would wear, who knows if he would have had the courage or the wherewithal to run away from slavery. And had we not had the contributions of Frederick Douglass as the great abolitionist, we may be a very different country sitting here today. And so I am just as proud as Anna as I am of Frederick. And I'm just so looking forward to tonight and the beautiful music that you're going to hear, and then the remarks from all of the wonderful people that we have on the program. But before we jump into all of that, there are some people that I want to recognize and thank for all of their hard work to make this week possible. Douglass Week co-founder Kristen Leary and Caroline Schroeder. Yes, give it up. My colleagues at the Globe Lane Initiative, FDFI Executive Director Erica Mock, Mayor Muriel Bowser and her staff, FDFI Board of Directors, 4 of whom are here tonight, Gabby Coppell, Board Co-Chair Mike Schmansky, Charles Randolph Wright, who is on the program tonight, and then there's somebody very special in the audience that I would like you to say hello to, and that is my mother and the chairwoman of our organization, Nettie Washington Douglass. Mom, will you stand up and say hello to everybody? Where are you, Mom? Oh, right here in front. And in case you're wondering, she is the person that united the bloodlines of the Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass families through the union of her Parents. Her mother, Nettie Hancock Washington, was Booker T. Washington's granddaughter, and her father, Frederick Douglass III, was Frederick Douglass's great-grandson. And they married in 1941, well actually they met in 1941 at Tuskegee Normal School and Institute. They happened to be on campus the same day, my grandmother was rushing across to meet friends, and my grandfather was going to eat in the student cafeteria. Is that correct, Mom? And they literally bumped into each other. Didn't know that the other descended from an historic family. They fell in love at first sight and wound up getting married just 3 months later. So on this Valentine's Day, this is a true love story, and my mom is the product of that relationship. She was an only child, so I have the honor and privilege of being the first male to carry the dual lineage. So thank you, Mom, for having me. Okay, good. And to our sponsors, a big thank you, Ambassador Mulhall and the Irish government, the U.S. Embassy in Dublin, CGI Communications, Colonel Forto Productions, and then the Arena Stage staff and crew. And thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. This is just going to be a fabulous celebration and a wonderful evening. And I wanted to make you aware of 3 documentaries airing this month that will feature Frederick Douglass. I was honored to contribute to each of these. Lincoln, there's a 3-part HBO Max on February 23rd, and then 1,000 Years of Slavery, which is a 4-part series. The first episode aired on the Smithsonian Channel last Monday. The second episode airs tonight, and I'll be in the final episode airing on February 28th. So please set your DVRs and check out all of these outstanding Douglass programming. Now I want to say a few words about our next guest, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, before I invite her onto the stage to say a few words. She is a fierce fighter for the District of Columbia and the legacy of Frederick Douglass over many years. She's responsible for the contribution from the district of the Frederick Douglass statue at the Capitol Visitor Center, which was unveiled in 2013. And Mom and I were there. I can't believe it's been almost 9 years since we did that. I was honored to serve with her on the Federal Frederick Douglass Bicentennial Commission, where she nominated me to serve as chair, proudly. Congresswoman, thank you for your tireless fight for representation for DC residents, which was a cause that Frederick Douglass fought for as well. Thank you for your leadership and push for DC statehood. And I like the sound of the state of Washington Douglass Commonwealth. And you know, it's not every day that you get a state named for your ancestor, so we're going to continue to work on that. And finally, on behalf of the family of Frederick and Anna Murray Douglass, thank you for all you do to lift up the life and legacy of the Douglass family in Washington, D.C. So please join me in welcoming Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am so very pleased to be with you this evening as we celebrate Douglass Week. Douglass Week, of course, celebrates the man we in the District of Columbia consider one of our greatest residents, Frederick Douglass. I have gotten 2 bills related to Douglass signed into law. One authorized DC's statue of Douglass to be displayed in the U.S. Capitol. Later this month, DC's second statue in the Capitol, Pierre l'Enfant, will be unveiled, giving the district 2 statues in the Capitol, like every state. An additional bill created a commission to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Douglas's birth, and I proudly served on that commission along with Ken Morris Jr., Douglas's great-great-great-grandson, who I am so pleased you have heard from tonight. On Frederick Douglass's birthday, I am particularly pleased that we are also highlighting the important work that Douglass's wife, Anna Murray Douglas, contributed to freedom for enslaved individuals. She was instrumental in the family's work supporting the Underground Railroad when they lived in Rochester, and she died at the family's home here in DC. Her work on the Underground Railroad is personally important because of my own family's history in making it to DC, which I cannot help but think this evening. I would like to highlight the historic progress we have made in the last few years on our march to full equality for the District of Columbia. In the House of Representatives last year, we passed the DC Statehood bill for the second time. When the House also passed the bill in 2020, it was the first time in history either chamber of Congress had passed the bill. In the Senate, there are 45 co-sponsors of the DC Statehood bill, with our distinguished Senate sponsor, Tom Carper of Delaware, making 46 supporters. Last year, the Senate held the second ever hearing on our DC Statehood bill. 54%, this is an amazing figure, 54% of the American people support DC statehood today, and that is a record. I would like to conclude by quoting from the 1892 update that Douglass himself added to his autobiography, and here I am quoting him. The District of Columbia is the one spot where there is no government for the people, of the people, and by the people. Its citizens submit to rulers whom they have no choice of selecting. They obey the laws which they have no voice in making. They have plenty of taxation, but no representation. 130 years after he wrote those words, we are finally closer than ever to making Washington, Douglas Commonwealth, named after Frederick Douglass, the 51st state. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Holmes Norton. Not many people know that Frederick Douglass traveled to Ireland and the British Isles in 1845 and 1846. He found friendship and some air to breathe there. I was fortunate enough to be in Ireland myself recently, and my mom and I have traveled there several times and found a warm welcome as well. Frederick Douglass spoke in many places, including Waterford, and we're happy and honored that Ambassador Mulhall is with us tonight. Thank you for your support of Douglass Week and for your friendship. Please welcome Ambassador Mulhall.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. It's a great privilege to speak at this event, and I'm here because of Frederick Douglass's historic visit to Ireland in 1845. He arrived in late August of that year, and he remained in Ireland for about 5 months and came back the following year for a shorter time, and then later in his life made a return visit to Ireland. His visit to Ireland was very significant for Frederick Douglass because it was the first time he'd been anywhere where he was totally free, because in America at that time, even though he had escaped from slavery, he was always in danger of being captured by a slave hunter and returned to captivity. In Ireland, he felt very much welcomed. He was able to live a normal life. He said he felt like a normal human being and not a slave the way he felt when he was in America. He travelled all around Ireland and gave speeches, including in my hometown of Waterford, where our city hall has a plaque which identifies that was the place where Frederick Douglass spoke in Waterford in October of 1845. Remember, that was a time when the Great Famine, which drove millions of people from Ireland fleeing from hunger and starvation, and many of them found their way to America and became part of the fabric of modern America. So Douglass was in Ireland at a time when Ireland was about to enter into a terrible catastrophe, a demographic catastrophe that devastated our country. And he was so well received in Ireland. There's a 2-volume publication by an Irish academic, Christine Keneally, who works at Quinnipiac University in Connecticut, and she has chronicled the visit of Frederick Douglass to Ireland, and the way in which he was so well received attracted very large crowds wherever he went. He was seen by Irish people as the kind of absolute proof that slavery was an abject and insane institution. And indeed, I'll just give you an example of the way he spoke. This is in Dublin, at the Music Hall in Dublin, to a large attendance in late September 1845. He said, "I am the representative of 3 millions of bleeding slaves. I have felt the lash myself. My back is scarred with it. I know what they suffer, and I implore you to bring the weight of that powerful public opinion which you can make so effective to bear on the hearts and consciences of the slaveholders of my country. Tell them they must give up their vile practices or continue to be held in contempt by the whole civilized world." And that was the sort of tone of the speeches he delivered, and they were extremely well received and reported on very comprehensively in the Irish papers, not just in Dublin, but all over the country. And very significantly, towards the end of September of 1845, he went to a meeting addressed by the Irish liberator, Daniel O'Connell. And O'Connell had, in 1829, forced the British government into conceding civil rights, full political rights to Irish Catholics who had not been able to serve in Parliament until that time because of a ban on Catholics serving in Parliament. So O'Connell was renowned all over the world. And indeed, when Douglass met him, he said that he hoped that a black O'Connell would arise in America to argue, agitate, and to galvanize Americans into campaigning for the abolition of slavery. O'Connell, the day that Douglass met him, he made the following statement. He said, "I am the advocate of civil and religious liberty all over the globe. And wherever tyranny exists, I am the foe of the tyrant. Wherever oppression shows itself, I am the foe of the oppressor. Wherever slavery rears its head, I am the enemy of that system or institution. Call it what name you will." O'Connell was a ferocious critic of slavery in America. He refused to take any support from any Irish person or Irish American who supported the institution of slavery. And when Douglass met him, Douglass said that he had heard O'Connell's name in the curses that were directed towards O'Connell by the slaveholders that held him in bondage. And that's why he was so keen to meet O'Connell when he went to Ireland, because he knew that anyone who could be cursed by the people who kept him in bondage was someone that he wanted to connect with. And I think O'Connell provided a lot of inspiration for Frederick Douglass, and that's why today we in Ireland, we cherish the memory of the visit of Frederick Douglass to Ireland in 1845. And last year we supported the Frederick Douglass Fellowships, and we brought 30 Frederick Douglass Fellows to Ireland. I know we've decided to support that program again this year and also in the coming years, because we want to continue to remember the visit of Frederick Douglass to Ireland in 1845. So it's always a great pleasure for me to introduce a musical act. I was going to say my backing band, but I thought that might sort of raise an alarm in the room and might vacate, might cause the room to be vacated. But I do want to introduce our next two performers who have made their own journey to Ireland in the footsteps of Frederick Douglass. Paul O'Christova and Nikhil Sabu travelled to Ireland last year when their theatre productions were shut down due to the pandemic. And I'm happy to learn that they had, like Frederick Douglass, they received an extremely warm welcome, an Irish Céad Míle Fáilte, or 100,000 welcomes, as we say in our native language, when they visited Dublin, Cork and Balbriggan. And Paul visited my hometown of Waterford, and I know he probably has a song written about Waterford. I'm sure he'll sing it for me one of these days, maybe not tonight. So they spent time researching Douglas's visit and composing music about following in the footsteps of Douglas. We're delighted that they're here to play some music, play some of the songs for us here this evening. So thank you very much. I'm happy to hand over to Paul and Nikhil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doesn't hearing the accent bring back such warm memories? And not just the accent, but the passion.
Yeah.
Everything you just heard this man say is true about how the people in Ireland, they know who Frederick Douglass is. They are, as a nation, very educated about that topic. And so I'm the lunatic that decided during the pandemic that I would go to Ireland. When someone told me the story that the ambassador just elucidated, the first thing I thought was, I'm a college-educated black man, so you're not going to tell me anything about Frederick Douglass. I know everything, but I didn't know that. So something in me, maybe Frederick was pulling me, and when Frederick calls, you answer, to go see for myself. And
I'm the bigger lunatic that followed him.
yeah, maybe you're a bigger lunatic because he didn't know what he was getting himself into. But this adventure that Frederick led us on, it led us to meet some incredible Irish musicians. And there's a compilation record that we've completed that'll be coming out with some of the musicians we met from Belfast and Dublin and Skerries and Balbriggan. One of them is named Donald Kearney, and he couldn't be here, he couldn't travel here tonight, but he emailed me a few months ago and said, hey, I wrote this song about Frederick's journey to Ireland on the Cambria. He was given a first-class ticket, but when he got there to get on the ship, they put him down in steerage anyway. And so he sat in the belly of the boat for all of those weeks that it took to get across the ocean. And that was one of the first pieces of education. You're gonna hear a little bit more that we learned. But so Donald wrote this song and he said, Paul, I think you should sing the lyric. So we're gonna start off with this song about Frederick's journey. He was fleeing for his life. His book had sort of set what would be a tabloid, scandal nowadays, what we would call a tabloid scandal. And the rumor was his owner, Thomas Old, was sending people up north to try and find him and recapture him. So Anna and I think possibly one of his mentors, Charles Remond, said, you need to leave. Mm-hmm. So this is about his journey to Ireland, alone, 27 years old, didn't know where he was going or what was awaiting him. It was then I fled, when they burned the pages we had read, and the poison spread. Burned the pages we had read. From me and you, they stole away everything we knew, and the lies came true. Stole away everything we knew. Why, oh tell me why, can you tell me? Deep in the belly of the boat, feels like months I've been afloat. I'm I'm so sick of singing the same foreign notes. So I'm leaving it behind, yeah, I'm leaving. So very deep below these waves, I've hidden gems I cannot say. We'll tread new ground while the moon keeps on spinning round and the sun shines down. While the moon keeps spinning round, why, tell me why, can you tell me? Deep in the belly of the boat, feels like years I've been afloat. I'm so sick of singing the same foolish notes. So I'm leaving it behind, yeah, I'm leaving. Why, oh tell me why, can you tell me? So very deep below these waves, I've hidden gems I cannot say. And I don't know where to find them. Thank you. So what the ambassador didn't tell you is the plan was to write an 8-episode limited series. I write for television as well. By the way, I play George Washington in Hamilton, and he plays Connor Murphy and Dear Evan Hansen. So we've flown in on our day off. But I also write for television, and I got this crazy idea to write an 8-episode limited series about this time that Frederick spent there. Now, with Ken's permission, as most people, long for historical accuracy, Bridgerton notwithstanding, in our time there, we went to the Wellington Memorial in Phoenix Park, and there were these etchings, in stone etchings. They have a monument that looks like our Washington Monument, but of course theirs was there first. And there are these etchings of South Asian Indian warriors, royalty, princes, workers. So I got this idea, because I had the example with me on the trip, of Frederick meeting someone of his own skin tone that he could confide in. So as a writer, I could have Frederick having conversations, expressing his true feelings about things that he was experiencing in Ireland. And it wasn't really far-fetched. So this character evolved named Govind, who is a tea merchant, sort of struggling, and sort of becomes Frederick's de facto valet. And Govind decides to take Frederick on a carriage ride out into the countryside in Ireland to show him a side that he hasn't seen.
What was your life like before this?
Read my book.
Reading is not my thing.
Well, we'll have to work on that.
You alright there, Mr. Douglas?
I sure am. I'm just getting used to feeling my lungs full. How about you? You all right?
Yes. Happy to be with someone who looks like me.
You think I look like you?
Close enough.
Close enough.
I hate the city. I feel so free in the countryside.
We do not have that in common, my brother. In my life before this, if you found yourself out in the countryside, you were being hunted. And you were looking for a river to hide your scent.
Oh. I'm sorry, brother.
My grandmother promised me that one day I would walk freely on this earth. Not running, but just traveling, maybe with a friend. Traveling, no beginning, no end. Traveling, down some random road. Traveling, no fears, no cares, no load. In the place where I come from, being out here like this. It would mean you're on the run. But the rivers, the hills, the trees wasn't for me. And I'm just traveling, looking straight ahead. Traveling, not leading or being led. Traveling, nothing on our minds. Traveling, taking our sweet time to be able to dream about what we want in life. Breaking the chains of the body and the mind, and choosing your own hand. Traveling, this feels good. Traveling, just like it should. Traveling, what a beautiful day. Traveling, don't have to know the way. La 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 nothing can stop us. Nothing can hold us back. The blue earth cherishes our brown skin. The sun is our friend. Traveling. Did you just smile? Traveling. Yeah, I know, it's been a while since I felt so free. Feeling the sunshine down on me. Loving the sweat on my skin. Loving my skin. Loving the skin that we're in. Feeling what this is. Feeling what this is. Traveling. Glad to be with you. Traveling.
Yeah, me too.
Traveling. Listen about that smile. Traveling. Don't tell nobody. Seriously, don't tell nobody. Thank you so much. This brings us to our final song that we created in Ireland. And if you caught that last little bit about the smiling, where Govan said, hey, did you just smile? One of the things we learned on our journey is that Frederick was the most photographed human in the 19th century. Not man, not black man, not American, the most photographed human. If you put it on a scale, Ken and I were talking about this, he was about 5 times more popular than Kanye on a global scale. That's how popular this man was. And when you research his photographs, he never smiles. And he was asked about it, and I'm paraphrasing, Ken will probably come out later and correct me, but the gist of it was he didn't want to encourage the image of the happy slave. He felt like there was nothing to smile about. So as we traveled through Ireland, we were thinking about, okay, so what might he have been thinking as he considered what people see on the outside and what he's thinking on the inside. This is a song called Outside. So much laughter all around me, but I don't let myself smile. So many miles I've covered, but I don't let myself rest. No time for that. More letters to write, more speeches to give, more truth to tell. And all the while I wonder, more people to meet, more tasks to complete, more freedom to seek. And all the while I wonder, do I look serious? Do I seem studious? Do I come off petrified on the inside? Do I look impervious? Do I appear joyful? Do I act satisfied on the outside?
There's a fire in your eyes. I see fire in your eyes.
So much static interfering, but I try not to lose my way. So many voices want a hearing, not enough hours in the day. More places to see, new feelings that swell, more nightmares to quell. And all the while I wonder, more opinions to give, more life to live, more tears not to shed. And all the while I wonder, do I look serious? Do I seem studious? Do I come off petrified on the inside? Oh, do I look impervious? Do I appear joyful? Do I act satisfied on the outside? On the outside.
Fire in your eyes.
On the outside.
I see fire in your eyes.
On the outside. Inside, outside, inside, outside, outside, outside. Inside, outside, inside, outside, outside, outside.
Fire,
Inside, outside. Outside, 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 outside. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
I can't remember what happens next, so someone help us. It's Ken. Okay, hi Ken.
I'm next. Yes.
It is coming, you know, we're working this compilation album. Artists like Sarah McCready, Donald Kearney, Michael Dawson, Rafa Fanula O'Connell. It's coming.
Nicole Morris.
Nicole Morris, Ken's daughter, gotta say this real quick, Ken. This is a family evening. Ken's daughter, Nicole, the great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Douglass, sings a duet with me where she plays Isabel Jennings, one of the politically active Irish women of the time who helped Frederick in Cork. And the funny story is that Nettie reminded me, I was hesitant to have Nicole record it because I said, well, wait, she's black and you know, Isabel is white. And then I thought, Paul, you playing George Washington in Hamilton. So give it a rest. It's beautiful work.
Paul, lovely soul, and it kills the mood. Thank you. It was such an honor to travel through Ireland with Paul this summer in the Frederick Douglass Global Fellows, and we had an opportunity to plant trees in 4 different cities in honor of Frederick Douglass, and just to feel the love that he felt when he was there, and just how accepting people were of us being there, and just the transformative time that we had, which really was what Frederick Douglass had when he was there in 1845 and 1846. Next up on the program is Professor Celeste Marie Bernier from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And she has become a close friend of mine. She is a Douglass family scholar, I think one of the greatest Douglass scholars in the world. She has been studying our family for more than 25 years. And I had an opportunity over the past couple of days to do a couple of virtual panels with her for Douglass Week. And she taught me so much about my family. I think she knows more about our family than my mom and I do. So please welcome my good friend, Celeste Marie Bernier, to the stage.
Thank you so much, Ken, for that beautiful introduction, which I'm not worthy of, and it's a privilege to be here on Mr. Douglas's birthday. The Anna Murray and Frederick Douglass family, past, present, and future, dedicated their lives to what they called freedom's battleground. Anna Murray Douglass. My husband is battling with the minions of oppression. Why not I endure hardship that my race may be free? Rosetta Douglass Spragg. Real life is an activity, a determination, a will to execute, a struggle. I do not wish to be tyrannized over. Lewis Henry Douglass. If I fall in the cause of humanity. If I die tonight, I will not die a coward. Frederick Douglass Jr. We are young in liberty, and we are old in slavery. Freedom must be our watchword. Charles Raymond Douglas. I will never desert. I will take a bullet first. I will die in freedom's battle. Annie Douglas, who dies 10 years, 11 months, and 13 days, as her beloved older brother, Frederick Douglass Jr. writes, the youngest in the liberation freedom movement, as Kenneth B. Morris beautifully describes the Douglass family, past, present, and future. Dear Father, I learnt my piece today. It is anti-slavery. Today I learned that hard-hearted man took Mr. John Brown out of the jail, half a mile, and hung him. The youngest liberator and freedom fighter. Finally, Frederick Douglass, writing to friends, now I can rest and be at peace. I am safe in the warm bosom of my family, with the beloved ones of my heart. I am able to suffer and be strong, and we together are able to suffer and to be strong. I would now like to introduce the beautiful, wonderful, legendary, magical friend that is Charles Randolph Wright.
Hi, everyone. Yes, better than that, please. There we go. Arena, what you don't know, I've done 12 shows at this theater, and this is my home space. So the idea of bringing Frederick Douglass here this coming summer was supposed to be 2 years ago, but to bring that here this summer is amazing. And just to thank you, because she's been very helpful with us in telling this story and finding these words and finding these people, and your love especially of Anna, because always the women are ignored. The women are placed behind, and we as men, we have to change that. We have to do better. And because of you, we've really been finding all these things about Anna, and I'm thrilled, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So, and you've also proven that Frederick Douglass is global. It's not just here, it's everywhere, so I thank you. Yes. I didn't know she was so tall. We just met, so we're always on Skype and on Zoom, and I was like, she's tall. American Prophet is a musical about Frederick Douglass's life, and it's basically 10, 12 years of his life, what I like to call the badass period of his life. And it's when he's deciding to become the prophet, to take that mantle, because that's not something you do lightly, and he did not do lightly. And we've really been working on how do you tell that story of this extraordinary man, and that extraordinary man had an extraordinary wife. So in American Prophet, it's also a love story, which you don't get to see, and typically, and we're really excited to do that. I want to introduce you to my partner in crime on this, Marcus Hummon. Marcus, come on out, please. So Marcus Hummon is an amazing composer from out of Nashville, Grammy Award winner, but his music is so stunning because it just goes through you. He finds the way to tell these stories. And I always say that country singers, country writers, they really tell great stories. They don't know how to end a song, but they can really tell, they just keep going and going. I'm like, Marcus, you have to end the song. It can't just fade. And we've been working, and Marcus, when he first started working on this, had the idea of just using Frederick's words, and he took his words and wrote songs from those words, and then we started working on a script where we literally use Frederick's words, and so the musical are his words that you hear. And especially right now, we all need his words. We're living through what I call two pandemics, a race pandemic as well as a health pandemic. And when you hear the things that Frederick says, it reminds you that we can work together, we can change, we can make a difference. And in this musical, you discover how he came to that. As we were working on it, Anna just, in a way, took over the musical. Every time we would say something and Marcus would write a new song, then another new song. And they just kept going, and it's like, why can't she have these songs? Why can't Anna have this presence? And so tonight, we're going to give you a couple of the songs that Anna sings in this musical that are just extraordinary. You want to say something, sir?
No, you do so well.
Oh, listen to me. I pay him for this. An extraordinary actress from New York came down today to be able to do this with us. Crystalline, you've seen on television, films. She was in Dear Evan Hansen, originally on Broadway. She's been in a lot of things, and she'll be playing Anna Douglass here this summer. And you are so very lucky. You get a little sneak peek of this astonishing actress performer, and she's singing a brand new song actually tonight that you'll hear. Crystalline Lloyd, come out here and join us. Did I also tell you that she's gorgeous? Yes? All right, that's Anna Douglass. This is a song called Your Star.
If you ever lose your way, I will be your star. You can look up into the sky and find that's where you are. I could be the one who knows your face when you saw your child for the first time, and you held them in your arms and knew it was a new day and a brand new start, and you could love that child like you were never loved, and erase all of the hatred and the harm, and that's where you are. That's where you are. If you ever lose your way, safe and you're coming back home. That's where you are. That's where you are. Ooh. If you ever lose your way, I will be your star.
Thank you, Kristen. She'll be back. Kenneth, come out here, please. Thank you.
All right.
As we've been working on this, what would happen sometimes is we would like, how would Frederick say this? How would this happen? We couldn't find like maybe a couple of words that we needed. So I would call Ken and say these words to me on the phone. He would say them, and I was like, okay, great, Frederick said them, right? So we could then put them.
I don't know about that.
That's right. It's the American prophet in his words, or Ken's.
Or Ken's. But the thing was so moving when we first did. I was so awful we were doing our first workshop of the show in New York, and the actors had worked 2-3 days, and we did a quick little run through for a couple of people, and Ken came in, and just before the show started, I said, oh, by the way, he's the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglass. Okay, go, right? And watching you watch that and watch Anna, who you've never seen portrayed, was just one of the, it's why we do this, why we make the kind of art we try to make, to see your face. And I always say, I don't care about what the critics say, I don't care about what that happens. If Nettie Douglas says that I did well, then that's all that I care about, you know? Because it's because you have held this legacy, you've carried this legacy, and for us to take this and do it in music, to do it on stage, to do it in film, to do it in 3 TV specials that you're on. I mean, really, 3, you know?
Actually, it's 6.
6, excuse me.
3 this month.
3 this month. It's because of your spirit, this power. I always keep saying, to be Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington, I mean, who are we, right? It's just, I think, how do I'm around this. So what I decided to do was adopt myself into your family, which I did. And so now I'm a son.
And he just met Mom for the first time tonight in person.
Yes.
But he always says to me, and it makes me laugh, he always says, you're carrying his face, you know, so you should be able to say what you want. I met Marcus maybe 6 or 7 years ago when he first started this and put it together, and I had an opportunity to go to Nashville and to see an early iteration, probably maybe the first one in the church, and was just so blown away. And then he continued to write music and continued to put it out there and kept me updated all along the way. But I guess it was about 3 years ago, he called me and he said, I have met Charles Randolph Wright. And I knew who Charles was, because not only because he directed Motown the Musical and all the other great things he's done, but I was a huge fan of Dreamgirls. And Charles was a dancer and performer in that show. And when Charles came aboard...
I was 10.
When Charles came aboard, the magic that these two have been able to make together, and the writing process and the music, and Marcus, you know, he could just go and write a song overnight and come back and it's done and it's beautiful. I'm so honored to be a part of this, but what I'm most proud of is that, you know, the family, including Anna, has been pushed aside in history by a white supremacist narrative. And Anna has not received the respect or the dignity that she deserves. And so when we first started talking about how she would be portrayed, it was really important to me and to my family that she be a prominent figure, her character in this musical, and that she is right alongside Frederick Douglass doing the work, and they have been able to do that. I can't wait for you all to see this in July. It's gonna knock your socks off, and I just, on behalf of the family of Frederick and Anna Douglass, thank you both very much for doing this, for writing it and putting it out.
Also tonight, I just feel it's so special because you saw Frederick Now with Roger, who is unbelievable. You saw your new piece about Frederick, you know, in Ireland. Why can't we have all of these pieces? It's so excited that we are all up here together celebrating him because he deserves and she deserves all of this and more. So actually, because he was coming here, Marcus, not me, Marcus rooked him into singing one of the Frederick Douglass songs that you just learned probably on the plane. But this is a song that opens the show and just really gives you the colors of Frederick. So thank you for learning this and thank you for being a part. You're not the son that I am yet, but you will get there.
I don't know about that.
I'll get there. That's Frederick. He said, watch it. All right, Marcus, let's give this a go.
Okay.
What does freedom look like? An osprey flying high, careless as the topsail, waving in a fearless sky, a fearless sky, a fearless sky. Oh, what does freedom taste like? Salt from a briny sea, waves leap for the starboard bow, as if to welcome me, to welcome me, to welcome me. Freedom, freedom, never leave someone behind. Oh, freedom, talking about freedom, never leave someone behind. What does freedom move like? It walks, it runs, it leaps. It knows just where it's going and goes just where it pleases, where it pleases, where it pleases. Freedom, freedom, never leave someone behind. Oh, freedom, talking about freedom, never leave someone behind. Freedom, never leave someone behind. Talk about freedom, never leave someone behind. What does freedom sound like? Church bells in the wind, doors that sing wide open. Friend, come in and be at peace. Right here with me, you're free. Freedom.
Okay, you sang that. You sang that.
There was
There was that, yes. I love the lyrics, never leave someone behind. And I think that's so appropriate for if you don't know, some of you, the Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives. I'm so proud to be on the board of this organization and the work that they do. You have to go on the website, fdfi.org, and see the work that's happening, which is about not leaving people behind and all the work that they do. And because I'm not actually a son, I can ask you to go and contribute too. So, but the work that they do is so very, very important and continues his legacy and Anna's legacy in a way that just is astounding and imperative and necessary for right now for 2022. We're going to close with an extraordinary song that is a perfect song for right now because it's about storms coming and what happens and how do you deal when a storm comes, because there are storms coming that we have fought for years and we are still fighting. And Anna expresses this, I think, so brilliantly. There's a storm coming.
Babe, my heart's like a weather vane. You catch me crying and you say, what have I done? Nothing. You ain't done nothing. It's all about the storm to come. Even though I will love you all my life, one day we're gonna have to say goodbye. On the horizon, there's a storm coming. So hold me like you'll never let me go, babe. Let the winds howl and blow. We'll cling to love. We'll cling to love. Let the storm come. Truth is, I was born to love you, but I was not born to go everywhere you will go. This is something that I've always known. In the end, the soul stands alone. There's a storm coming. So hold me like you'll never let me go, babe. Let the winds howl and blow. We'll cling to love. We'll cling to love. Let the storm come and hold me like you'll never let me go, babe. Let the winds howl and blow. We'll cling to love. Let the storm come and
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I or those I represent have to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? Such is not the state of the case. And I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, and I must mourn. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yea, we wept when we remembered Zion, for there those that carried us away captive required of us a song. And they who wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions. My subject, then, is American slavery. I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view. What to the American slave? Is your 4th of July? I answer. A day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your prayers and your hymns. Your sermons and thanksgivings. With all your religious parade and solemnity are to him mere bombast. Fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. Now, want you to behold the practical operation of this internal slave trade, the American slave trade, sustained by American politics and American religion. Here you will see men and women reared like swine for the market. You know what a swine drover is? I'm going to show you a man drover driving a company of 100 men, women, and children from the Potomac River straight down to the slave market at New Orleans. Now mark the sad procession as it moves wearily along. Hear the inhuman wretch who drives it. You hear his savage yells and his blood-curdling oaths as he hurries on his frighted captives. There. You see the old man? His locks are thinned and gray. Cast one glance, if you please, upon that young mother. Her shoulders are now bare to the scorching sun. Her briny tears falling upon the brow of the little baby in her arms. Her speed had faltered under the weight of her child and her chains, and that gash on her shoulder tells her to move on! Follow this drove to New Orleans. Go to the Superdome and attend the slave auction. See men examined just like horses. See the forms of women rudely and brutally exposed to the shocking gaze of American slave buyers. See this drove so and separated forever. And don't you ever forget the deep, sad sobs that arose from the scattered multitude. You see that girl? She's 13. She's weeping. Yes. She's weeping for the mother from whom she has been torn. Mama. Ayúdame, mamá. Yo quiero mi mamá. Mamá. To me, the American slave trade is a sickening sight. And yet you invite to your shores fugitives of oppression from abroad. Honor them with banquets. cheer them with ovations, toast them, salute them, pour out your money to them like water, but the fugitives from your own land you advertise. Hunt, arrest, shoot, and kill. Oh yes, you're all on fire at the mention of liberty for Ireland. But cold as an iceberg at the thought of liberty for the enslaved of America. You profess to believe that of one blood God made all nations of men to dwell on the face of all the earth, and hath commanded all men everywhere to love one another, and yet you notoriously hate, and you glory in your hatred, all men whose skin is not colored like your own. You declare before the world, and you understood by the world to declare, that you hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these rights are life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and yet you hold securely in bondage 1/7 of the inhabitants of your own country. Well, fellow citizens, I will not enlarge further on your national inconsistencies. The mere existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism as a sham, and your humanity as a base pretense, and your Christianity as a lie. You lie! It is a curse to the earth that supports it, and yet you all cling to it as if it were the anchor of all your hopes. Now be warned. Be warned. A horrible reptile is coiled up in your nation's bosom. The venomous creature is now nursing at the tender breast of your youthful republic, and for the love of God, y'all had better tear away, and fling from you the hideous monster, and let the weight of 20 millions now crush and destroy it forever, 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 forever. Who do we need? We need Frederick Douglass. And when do we need him?